It all started with two words: she knows. These were the words that would end up causing a school-wide riot, but you'll never believe how it all began. So every school has that one class, the one where the teacher makes it crystal clear from the very first day that your entire grade will basically be decided by a single test at the end of the year. And that is where this story begins. It's the day before the biggest test of the year in math class, and you could feel it around school. The entire atmosphere felt tense. Friend groups that normally spent lunch talking about which teachers would win in a fight if they all went head to head were now studying. Personally,
I'm taking the 87-year-old history teacher
who refuses to retire. But anyways, everyone was completely locked in for that test tomorrow. But then, somewhere around the middle of the day, a rumor started to spread throughout school. Someone got their hands on the answer sheet to the test tomorrow. To this day, I have no idea who found it first or where it came from. Nobody does. But within about an hour, it had spread to basically the entire school. Now you may be wondering, how can a test start a school riot? Well, it will all make sense very soon. I want to make something very clear before continuing. I'm not recommending cheating. I mean, I did do it in school, yeah, like all the time. Like, to be honest, I don't think I studied more than 3 hours for my whole academic career. But that doesn't mean you should. So listen, I don't care if you are the smartest kid in school. If you get sent a picture of the test answers for the biggest test in school, you're gonna take a screenshot and you're probably gonna memorize those answers. So basically the whole school had the cheat sheet. Everyone's going home that night feeling great about the test tomorrow. But then the next morning arrived and all that joy we felt the day before quickly went away. Because there's an unspoken rule that happens on big test days at school. And if you've ever been a student at any point in your life, you already know what this rule is. The first period kids are basically the guinea pigs. The rest of us, everyone in second, third, fourth period, we wait by the hallway outside first period's classroom, and the second first period ends, we're interviewing them. We need all the information we can get. How hard was the test? What should I be studying? Was the cheat sheet accurate? So when first period ended that morning, there were probably 40 of us hovering in the hallway waiting to get answers. But when those first period students walked out of the classroom, the expression on their faces was not the relieved expression of people who had just breezed through a test with a cheat sheet. Instead, it was something else. It was something that looked as if whatever just occurred during that class ruined their whole year. So when one of my friends from first period walked out of that class, I asked him how the test went. But his answer back was the worst thing he possibly could have said. He goes,
"She didn't give us a test."
Everyone's really confused, trying to figure out the situation. I said back to my friend,
"Wait, what do you mean she didn't give you a test?"
She didn't give the test. She found out the answers got leaked.
Now I know none of you watching this were there with me in that moment. I mean, well, unless you are someone that went to my school who's watching, which in that case, what's up? Also, please don't comment about what I did during the talent show that one year. I'd prefer to keep that off the internet. But anyways, in this moment, everyone's heart dropped. The teacher found out that the answers got leaked, meaning all the people who didn't study and were just about to rely on the cheat sheet to pass the test were cooked. But it wasn't even the test part that was the real problem. The test we could probably figure out, maybe just pass with a C. The bigger issue was what the teacher had apparently done during first period instead of giving the test. She pulled every student aside, one by one, individually, like a formal interrogation. She had a clipboard with her and she sat students down and asked them directly whether they had seen or spread the answer sheet. And if you were guilty of this, the consequences she laid out were not small. It wasn't a "you'll fail this test" or a parent phone call home. No, the consequence was suspension. Anyone caught spreading those answers would be suspended. Now don't get me wrong, suspension sounds fun in theory. Get a few day vacation from school, finally get to play video games from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. on a Tuesday. That's not the scary part. The scary part is two things. Number one, your parents finding out you got suspended. And number two, the fact that it goes on your record. Because if you get suspended, I hope you like flipping patties because you can kiss any chance at getting into a good college away. My dream college was Streamer University, so I really didn't want this to happen. So there we all were, standing in the hallway, panicking, trying to figure out what to do. I was in the third period class, which meant I had roughly an hour until it was my turn to get interrogated. And what happened next was not something I'm proud of. But desperate times call for desperate measures. So me and 4 other kids who I was in that class with were all in a group chat. And we were texting about what we would do when third period came around. There were 3 options in our mind. Option 1, deny everything. We all just say we never saw any answers. We have no idea what anyone's talking about. We studied hard and we're ready for the test. The problem with this was numbers. We weren't talking about 3 kids trying to keep a secret. No, we were talking about potentially 30 students in our class alone that we had to trust to keep this lie saying no one knew anything. We knew that wasn't possible. Someone would snitch so they didn't get in trouble. I wouldn't even blame anyone for doing that either. Would you potentially sacrifice your future just to say this guy didn't cheat on a test? I know I wouldn't. So we went on to option 2, which was just skip the class. Go home, go to McDonald's, go literally anywhere but that class. Now we were very close to going through with this option, but at the end of the day, it just didn't seem like like it would end well. If we ditched third period, the teacher would know, which would basically make it seem like we are 100% guilty. So this led us to option 3. Cause some sort of distraction to get everyone out of class. We didn't know what, we didn't know how, but we needed to figure out fast if we were gonna go through with this plan. It took about 15 seconds of us thinking what distraction we could cause that would, number 1, be crazy enough to get everyone out of class, but number 2, not too crazy to the point where we're getting in even more trouble than we would have for sharing test answers. And out of nowhere, someone says,
What if we pull the fire alarm?
there was a pause, because immediately you would think, absolutely not, this is a terrible idea. But the more thought we gave it, we were all like, hold on, this might actually work. If the fire alarm went off right as third period started, the entire school would be evacuated. We'd be sent outside, time would pass, and by the time they'd figure out there wasn't any actual fire, it would be too late to give us the test, which would give us the entire evening to try figuring out a better plan for the next day. The only remaining question was, who was gonna do it? Who was actually gonna walk up to that fire alarm and pull it? Because I sure wasn't. This is where my friend, who I'm gonna call Marcus for the sake of the video, like I do every video, but this is where he steps up. I don't know if he just watched Hunger Games the night before and he was on his Katniss Everdeen vibe or what, but he says,
I'll do it.
this sounds like Marcus was being super brave, and you might think it's hard to understand why someone would ever volunteer for this role, but it might make a little more sense if I tell you that Marcus was not the type of guy that cared too much about his future. This man was not going to college. When you asked him what he was doing after high school, he'd go,
I don't know. Probably take a gap year or 7.
he just did not care. Don't worry though, because Marcus is doing great in life right now. He's in the military. So actually, I haven't heard from him in over a year, so I don't know if he's actually doing good. But I hope he is. Anyways, I tell you all this to say, Marcus was not afraid to step up and pull that fire alarm. And just like that, we had a plan. So second period bell rings, and we're all heading to the class. Third period. We get in, everyone is terrified as you'd expect, but when the bell rings for class to start, one person is missing. Marcus. I was relieved because this meant he didn't back out on the plan. Class starts and the teacher's explaining the whole situation about how she's gonna pull every student out of class one by one because she needs to talk to them. 3 minutes go by, fire alarm wasn't pulled yet. 5 minutes go by, still didn't happen. So the rest of us are looking at each other, getting a little worried, thinking,
Marcus must have got scared and didn't go through with it.
but then we heard it. Fire alarm activates and the light is flashing. If you've ever been in a school when a fire alarm goes off, you know those first 2 seconds are always this weird frozen moment where everyone just looks around trying to figure out if it's real or not. And then the teacher snaps into protocol mode and everyone stands up and the building starts emptying out by alphabetical order. So if your last name starts with X, Y, or Z, you better tell your family you love them because brother, you are cooked. Or sister. We filed out onto the field along with the rest of the school. Marcus found our group and dapped us all up like he just got away with a heist, which in a way he kind of did. And you would think pulling the fire alarm would be the most crazy thing that happened that day, but unfortunately, this was just the beginning. This day was about to get way more hectic, and not in a good way. For about 10 minutes, it was perfect. We were outside, the clock was ticking, the teacher could not pull any of us into a private conversation out there. Maybe 15 minutes passed before one of the staff members confirmed there was no fire, and that all students should begin returning to their classrooms. 15 minutes, that's all we got. I looked at Marcus, Marcus looked at me, the rest of the group found each other's eyes across the field, and we all had the same expression on our faces. We still have 45 minutes of third period. We need to cause another distraction to waste more time. The only problem, we needed this plan in the next 30 seconds. We looked around, trying to put our combined 7 brain cells together to figure out a plan, but there was no time. It wasn't possible to set something up this quickly, but that's when one of us go,
Wait, what if we just tell everyone to run?
I know. Wow. Bravo. Great idea. Run. That's surely gonna work. But here's the thing. Usually, we would all agree this was an incredibly dumb idea. But in that moment, once again, we all looked at each other and realized we don't got anything better in mind, so let's do it. The idea was simple. We were on the field. We had access to basically every student who was scheduled to take the test. So if we spread the word quietly saying,
Hey, on our cue, run. Just start running in different directions.
it would cause enough of a distraction to delay some more time. We didn't know how much more time, but this was the only idea we had. The teachers would need time to wrangle the students, and that time was what we needed. And to make sure people cooperated, the leverage was already there. If you run with us, we'll keep your name out of the cheating conversation when the teacher asks. But if you don't run, you're on your own. Anyways, you know that thing where you have a task that is so simple and easy, yet you can't get yourself to do it? Like it's so doable that your brain just refuses. Assignment due in 2 weeks? Not touching it. Assignment due in 4 hours? Let's go. That's literally booking a doctor's appointment for our generation. There's just something about having to call a random number, talk to a stranger, get put on hold, and then get told the next opening is in 2 months that just makes your brain go, nope.
Don't even do it. Let's just drink more water and hope for the best instead. I've always been like this, but I moved recently, which means if I wanted to go to the doctor, I would have had to find a new one. So usually, I just know I would have put this off forever. But now, because of ZocDoc, today's video sponsor, I don't have that desire to procrastinate anymore with booking doctor's appointments. If you don't know what ZocDoc is, it's a website where you can find doctors near you, read real reviews, check if they take your insurance, and book an appointment instantly without calling anyone. When I first heard of ZocDoc, I thought it would be like every other website where you have to put all this information in and then actually talk to someone to figure out an appointment. But in reality, once I went to the website, it barely took any time at all to get a doctor's appointment. It literally takes a couple minutes and you actually know what you're walking into. I see you guys in the comments all the time saying how sick you are, so I want you to be healthy. I don't want you guys to put off doctor's appointments like I have in the past. So if you're a procrastinator like me, fix the hassle of booking doctor's appointments by going to ZocDoc.com/Tyler Vitelli and book an appointment. I know it may seem small, but just clicking the link in the description is a huge step towards prioritizing your health. Thanks again to ZocDoc for sponsoring the video and for helping us all take better care of our health.
We went out across the field spreading the word to everyone. You get the plan, you pass it to the person next to you. Just don't make it obvious. We all knew the signal, a specific sound that my friend was gonna make, something recognizable enough that everyone who was in on it would know. After about 2 minutes, a bunch of people were in. But what I did not fully think through, what none of us thought through because we were operating at roughly 20% of our normal brain capacity, was what would happen when our message got passed to about 50, 60, 70 people in one big game of telephone. Because the thing about whispered plans is that they don't stay intact. Every new person who hears it adds their own interpretation, their own additions. So by the time the message has gone through enough people, it went from,
Hey, run in a random direction on my signal,
to something much, much worse. And we found this out very quickly because my friend made the signal and approximately 60% of the school started running. Where did I get 60% from? I don't know, I made it up, but it sounds accurate. I would try to describe what this looked like, but I don't think me saying it would do it justice. And I'm low-key illiterate, so I'll just show you what it looked like instead. Literally hundreds of students running in all sorts of directions. Where were each of them going? No idea, but they kept running. Teachers and staff members were turning in full circles trying to figure out where to look first. Some students were laughing, some were genuinely confused about why they were running, but they kept going anyway. But remember how I said the message of, hey, everyone run in a different direction, changed? Well, apparently what the message changed to was very different because a large group of students did not hear just run in a different direction. What they were told was something much more like cause as much chaos as possible. So they went back into the school building and started doing exactly that. Now, when I say cause chaos, that might be an understatement because there were students pulling things off desks, emptying out random backpacks into the hallways, and the cafeteria, I don't even want to describe what happened in the cafeteria. What I know is that when I came back in from the field, it looked like a tornado just happened. There were kids who didn't even have that math class who were causing chaos just because they saw other kids doing it. Me and my friends who were low-key responsible for starting all this just stood watching and said nothing because what do you even say? This wasn't what we planned. We had not issued a riot. We had issued a distraction, a specific contained distraction. And somewhere between our mouths and everyone else's ears, it had become something that could get us in way more trouble than just a suspension. Last time I checked, inciting a riot is a crime, which would mean jail time. That's a lie. I've never actually checked if that's a crime, but I've heard people say it on TV shows, so I'm just gonna assume it is. The scariest part about all this was that we couldn't stop it. It didn't matter that we started this whole thing. We had no authority here. The situation was way bigger than us now, and we knew the worse it got, the worse the punishment would probably be for us. We all thought, surely it can't get worse than this, right? Right? I mean, yeah, a bunch of kids were making a mess, but at least they weren't causing any real damage to the school. That's a lie. Because one of the students, who was basically just using this as an excuse to cause havoc and didn't actually care about the distraction part, thought this situation was the golden opportunity to do straight up vandalism. He grabbed a baseball bat and broke a window in the school. Now, if you ask me, I think this dude had been waiting to do that forever, and now was just the perfect opportunity for him to go through with it. Like, he was gonna do that no matter what at some point. We just gave him the platform. But this was the moment we realized there might be no coming back from this. There had now been literal vandalism on the school. Obviously, when the kid did this, all the adults' attention went to him first. So they grabbed him and took him to the office immediately. Actually, now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure I've never seen him again after that day. Like, I have no idea what happened to him. But anyways, the rest of us students all just had to wait until the whole situation sorted itself out. And eventually it did, but in the worst way possible, because the principal got on the intercom, and our principal was not someone who raised their voice. That was the thing. When they spoke in the hallways, it was calm. She never tried being scary like some principals. You felt like you could look her in the eyes without being turned into stone. But on the intercom, she was different. For the first time, I heard this lady almost scream. I'll repeat what I remember her saying and in the tone she said it.
Attention! Any student who continues to cause disruption will be expelled. You have been warned. Stop now and go back to your line on the field.
Not suspended, expelled. You would not believe how fast students were switching up. People who had been mid-destruction just kind of stopped what they were doing and looked around as if they were under some sort of spell and just got out of it. No one was running anymore. The cafeteria was still cooked, but oh well. 5 minutes later, everyone was back out on that field. So now there were 2 investigations running at the same time. The first one was to figure out who started the riot. Teachers and administrators were moving through the crowd, asking questions, trying to trace the origin point of what had just happened. And usually, in these stories, I'm cooked. I don't get out of them. But here's the one miracle in this entire story. The one thing that actually went our way. Although we started this plan for everyone to Naruto run to nowhere, the message got spread so far that nobody could actually trace it back to who started it. Every student who got asked where they heard the plan pointed to someone else, who pointed to another person, who pointed to someone else. It was like asking someone to find the first person who created a meme. It's just not possible. So amazingly enough, no one got in trouble for the riot. Well, actually, the whole school kind of got in trouble because the principal just canceled the annual school carnival we had instead. This sounds like a much better punishment than expulsion on paper, but if you'd ever been to that carnival, you low-key might have preferred getting expelled. The school carnival was magic. It was the place where I had my very first kiss. Okay, that's a lie. We all know that ain't ever happening. But I did feel guilty because I knew deep down I was kind of responsible for the carnival getting canceled. Now, was I gonna own up to what I did? No, but hey, I still felt bad. I didn't have time to feel bad for too long though, because there was still one gigantic elephant in the room that needed to be addressed. No, not that one, a different one. But the elephant in the room was what was gonna happen to all the kids who cheated on the test. We still never figured that out. Now on that specific day, obviously, there wasn't enough time for the teacher to interview us when we got back to class. So when I got home after school, me and my group contacted every person we knew in our class to see if we could all get on the same page. That evening, I was on my phone for hours. I felt like a journalist trying to get answers on which team the biggest athlete is gonna move to. Because if we couldn't get even just one person on the same page as us, we were cooked. My friends and I were sending the same message over and over to the students in our class. Stay silent about the cheat sheet. Act oblivious when the teacher asks you about it. When she asks whether you saw the answers, you say no. You say you studied on your own. You say you've genuinely never even heard of a cheat sheet. You say you can't even speak English if you have to. Whatever it takes. And for the most part, the responses were good. So much of our class was using the cheat sheet and they didn't want to get busted for it, so they agreed to follow our plan. And I trusted their loyalty. One person even sent a whole paragraph about how they had our backs no matter what, which was kind of weird because people who over-explain their loyalty are often the first ones to snitch. But I didn't think about that at the time. In that moment, reading all those messages, I genuinely felt like we could really do this. I went to bed that night almost calm about the next day. But then, that next day of school came. I was so nervous during the first 2 classes of the day, just anticipating what would happen when I walked into 3rd period. Would everyone stick to the story? Did we make sure to talk to every single person in the class? But finally, it was showtime. 3rd period came. I walked into class and sat down. We could tell by how the teacher was standing with her clipboard and pen that she was still gonna do interviews that day. I was hoping maybe she'd forget after the school riot, which wouldn't have really made sense unless she had Alzheimer's or something, but no, she remembered. All the students in class were looking at each other just to make sure we were on the same wavelength. I'd look my classmates in their eyes to see if it looked like they were gonna snitch, and the bell rings, the teacher explains the situation, and she starts calling out students one by one to interview them. I was looking at people's faces as they came back from the conversation. Did it look like they kept a secret? Did they cave in and snitch on us, or did they cave and snitch on us for a Happy Meal and an A in the class? I couldn't tell. All I could do was stick to the plan. She was going by alphabetical order, so as always, I was one of the last people to go. By the way, who decided to make alphabetical order a thing? This is one of the most ridiculous ways of keeping track of people that's ever been created. Am I just saying this because my last name starts with a V? Yes, but I still do think it's dumb. Anyways, it seemed like the plan may have been working, but then one name got called. I'm not gonna say whose name it was, but his name was Oliver. Oliver got up, and you could just tell he was a little more nervous than all the other students. I still trusted him, but the real thing that worried me was when he came back in the classroom after getting interviewed, because as he went back to his desk, he was looking straight at the ground, like he couldn't even look any of the students in their eyes. Then, something very weird happened. Instead of continuing on with the list and interviewing the rest of the class, the teacher came back in. This was off script. We had no idea what was about to happen next. list. And what she did shocked us. She pulls out her clipboard and reads out a list. A list of approximately 20 names that she read out loud. My name was one of them. And as she was going through all these names, I could tell exactly what all of them had in common. It was the kids who were 100% in on our plan. Like, these were the kids that were definitely gonna cheat on that test. All the names on that list were told to stay after class. I ran through possible outcomes in my head the entire time I was sitting there. We were cooked in every single one of them. We all knew the punishment, suspension, and someone snitched, so we thought our fate was sealed. I was getting prepared to call all my local fast food establishments just to see if I could get a job there ASAP to get a head start on the rest of my life. And after third period ended, the principal came in. She wasn't saying anything, she was just listening in. But the teacher basically explained to us that Oliver told her exactly what happened. Everyone was planning to keep the same story and act like they had no idea about the cheat sheet. Oliver even showed her the text we sent him asking to be a part of the plan. Now, Oliver was a very good student, and he said to himself, I gotta put me first. So he snitched on the whole class. All 20 of us were just sitting there ready to accept it. We were about to get suspended. But after the teacher explains the whole situation, she says to us,
Now, as you guys know, I made it very clear that anyone who was going to attempt to cheat on the test and didn't come forward about it would be suspended. But I know all of you. You're not bad kids. What you did was just dumb. So I will not be suspending you, but you will be receiving a 0 on the exam.
when I tell you I have never celebrated failing a test so much, I mean it. You would have thought I just won the World Cup the way I was jumping for joy after hearing I was getting a 0. Sure, that completely ruined my grade in the class, but not being suspended meant I could hold off on the McDonald's applications for a few more years. So I learned a very valuable lesson that day. If you're gonna cheat, you have to do it in a smarter way. No, I mean, the lesson is don't cheat, or do. I'm not your mom. I don't really care, to be honest. I wonder how my mom's doing, actually. You know what? I'm gonna go call her.